Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's the 27th of August and it's actually a really big day here today. So I am starting off the seeds for the flower farm. So the flowers that I will be picking in 2024 are going to get started today, and I'm really excited. Like, I'm kind of nervous and I'm excited because I suppose the whole reason that we bought this house with this land on it was to have somewhere to start a flower farm, and it really begins like, or it feels like it's the beginning of the dream. So I'm really excited. So I thought I would do a little video on what exactly I'm sowing, how I'm sowing them, and why I'm sowing them now. So I hope you enjoy it and that you get something from it. Right, first things first, a little bit of boring prep work, but very important step. First of all, I have all of my seeds that I need to sow today written already into my little book. So I find if I'm sowing seeds and I say to myself, oh, I really want to make a note of what date I started that, and I don't have this kind of partially filled in already, I'll say to myself, oh, I'll do it later, and I'll completely forget. So that's why I have the variety name all ready to go, and then I have my different columns here to write in the details. So for example, when it was sowed, when it was hardened off, the location it was hardened off, the planting date, all those sorts of things. So get that done first. And then the other thing that's particularly boring but equally as important is get all your labels cleaned, ready to go, have your pencil or your marker ready to go, because again, if you don't have a clean label and you say to yourself, oh, I'll come back later and I'll remember what they are, you won't. You absolutely won't. And then everything will be mixed and you won't know what's what. So get your list written down. Even, you don't even have to have a journal, you can just have it on a piece of paper or something, or have it on the notes app in your phone, but have it ready to go, so you're just putting the date beside it. Make the whole process as easy as possible for yourself. So once you've them two things done, it's time to get going. Now, depending on your preference, some people like to sow in these seed trays, and some people like to soil block. Some people like to spread it out on the top of some compost and they'll prick the seedlings out at a later date. I've kind of tried and tested a few things over the years, and I still don't feel that I fully got it right, but I'm hoping that this will be the year that I get it right. So I used to always use these plastic seed trays with the individual cells. Now I'm deliberately using this one because you can see if you get this light plastic, they're just going to fall apart, and you'll find every year or second year that you have to replace them. You can get really good heavy duty plastic like this, and I quite like these, but they do work out expensive. Now I found somebody, I think it was on Facebook Marketplace or something, selling these off. So I have a few of these. I find these are great for my tomatoes, and even I'm thinking about trying some ranunculus this year. So I'll probably start them off on something like this. But I just find these trays are awkward. Like, they're very bendy. So if you go to pick them up when they're full of compost, they bend in the middle. So then you have to put them in another tray, and it's a lot of plastic. It's not great quality plastic, but also something I found over the years is I've tried to soil block as well, right? Now, this was my soil blocker I got initially, and I really like it. I'll go into soil blocking in more detail now because that's how I'm going to sow my seeds, but just as an overview. So I really like soil blocking, but I find with flowers, this size of a cell, or even this size of a soil block, it's too big. I find flower seeds are a lot more prone to rotting than vegetable seeds. So if I leave them in these over the winter and I'm trying to water these so they don't dry out, they stay too wet and they have a tendency to rot the seeds. That's what I found anyway. And even with this size of a soil block, generally most of the seeds are too small and rot. So this year I've upgraded and I've got the micro blocker, and I'm going to try this because I think this is probably just the ideal size for starting out flower seeds. And then you get these bits that you can make the bigger soil blocks, put the little ones into it for potting on. I'll show you that all in time. But this year, for now, I'm going to leave the seed trays to one side, and I'm going to go with purely soil blocking. So let's make our mix for soil blocking. So lots of people have different like recipes that they use for soil blocking. I find the number one thing with soil blocking is that you need your compost to be like sloppy. It needs to be really wet. So again, other people have, like, they like to put this in, they like to put that in, they like to put the different amounts in. I just kind of make it up as I go along and just test it, and whatever sticks, I go with that. So I've tried all different pea-free composts over the years, and I just have to say that I find the pea-free compost just a little, like, it's not great for seed starting. It's fine for growing in, but it's not great for the actual seed starting. So what I'm using this year, and also I'm not going to lie, I kind of forgot to get some compost as well. So what I'm doing is I have some spent mushroom compost, which you will have seen me previously put in all the beds in the polytunnels. It's very, very well rotted horse manure. Some of it does contain a little bit of peat, but I suppose it's better than using new peat. You know what I mean? And then this will go into the beds here where I am, and it'll stay there forever. It's not going to get dug up again. So you're kind of bringing it back to the soil, really. I'm not going to get too much into the pea-free debate because I know some people are really, really passionate about it. And I definitely would love to go pea-free, but I'm yet to find a compost that's pea-free and great for seed sowing. And that's just me being honest. I don't want to come on here and say, oh yes, I use this pea-free and it's great, when it's actually not. So another thing that I put in is some of this horticultural grit. Now again, this kind of helps with the drainage, but it also, God, I'm getting that everywhere, kind of fleshes out your compost as well a bit. I think as well, kind of in a way, it gives a bit of a backbone and structure to the soil blocks so that they keep their shape. So I put a good bit of that in. Again, this is trial and error. Do you know what I mean? You'll have to just add a bit, see if that's right. Now, this is not ideal. This is a load of moss mixed in with this. Like, that'll help keep the moisture or whatever, but it's not ideal. But we're working with what we have. And then lastly, I have some of this, again, a seed starting compost. Everybody raved about it, but I didn't find it was fantastic on its own, and I just need to use it up. So, and it's really expensive actually, so I'm kind of like cutting it with the mushroom compost and the grit to flesh it out, as it were. So I just mix everything up. This is a really, really messy job, so if you have any good jewellery or rings or anything like that, I would advise you to take them off now. So that's that all mixed. So next thing we need to do is get the water and mix in some water. So remember, sloppy is the name of the game here. And you will see when I go to make the soil blocks that you'll probably look at it and go, that's way too wet, that's not going to do anything, but surprisingly it does. I used to have a wooden spoon for doing this actually. Where's it gone? Let's see if I can find it. Nope, can't find it. So we'll just have to go in like this. And you know, you need to make sure at this point as well, because some composts when you get them can be quite dry, like that living green. I may as well just go in with my hands with this, but that living green one, like that's very dry, so you're nearly having to like give it a couple of minutes to rehydrate it. So again, although it looks like it's quite sloppy now, give it a couple of minutes and you'd be surprised how much of the water will be absorbed. Now, obviously, if getting your hands this messy isn't your thing, you can certainly, as I said, do it with a spoon, or maybe put it all in a bucket and get one of those, is it auger attachments, or like a paint mixer attachment for your drill, and put that in and get it to mix it up. But I don't mind getting my hands messy. I actually find this quite relaxing, kind of like baking. So I'm just going to go ahead and get all of this mixed up. Okay, so as you can see, very, very sloppy, very sloppy. So I'm just finding a few big bits in this as I'm going. That is a stone. Okay, very sloppy. So what we're going to do is we are going to try and see what the consistency is like. It mightn't be right first time, We might have to try it a few times, but that's kind of part of the fun. So first things we need is a tray. Now, so as I was saying about the size of this, I'm just going to explain this to you right first. This soil blocker, right? The idea behind them is obviously to make a block, you put your seed into it, right? You don't need a tray. But I don't know if you can see, like these have like little nipply bits and this has square bits. Now I've changed these out. So when I first got this soil blocker, it came with the little nipply bits. So basically that's making a little block. It's got a slight indent. You put your seed in there and you can cover it over or not if you want. The idea behind these, and this is a new thing to me, I haven't tried them yet, is that when you make this size of a soil block, there'll be a hole this size. And the idea is that the micro blocks fit straight into that. So for when you're potting on, you just pop these little ones straight into this. So I'm going to try it just to see how it works. As I said, I haven't done it yet. So I find, right, so when you hold this bit and press it down, this moves up and down. So when you're actually making the block, you want to hold the whole thing so it's not going down. And you want to push like this, and you want to go like that against the bottom. So you're kind of pushing it all up, and then you want to go back into the top. So you're constantly kind of trying to stuff as much of it up there as you can. And once you think it's full, you're putting it into your tray, press it down to the bottom, hold this, pull this up. I'll shake, shake, shake. That is not coming out. So there we go. Okay. So that to me says, so this soil block here, that's the one with the little nipple. You can see the indent for putting your seed in it. That one's fine. This one at the end isn't fine. It's after falling apart. But the second one in, this is the one with the hole, held. So that says to me that if I'm doing them like this with the little nipple, it's fine when it's this slushy. But I'm going to need a little bit less slushy to support the walls around for the smaller ones to go into. So that's good to know. So even there's like different mixes suit different things. So what I'm going to do next now is try the micro blocker to see what sort of soil mix. Like this might be too slushy for this. I don't think it will be because they're smaller, but we'll see what happens. And then I'm going to find it interesting to see if that does fit in there quite well. So let's go with the micro one. So again, same story. I'm going down until I hit the bottom. I'm kind of moving it up and down to move the stuff in. I usually kind of go 3 times to try to get it full all the way to the top, and then I give it a little squish like that, a little swivel, put it down. Okay, that was a disaster. That one of them worked. Okay, that mix might be a little too slushy for these, but let's see, does this fit in here? So this is a micro block into one of these blocks. I can't remember the inch size of this, but yeah, there we go. That's great. That fit in lovely. Now, obviously, you'll have to be a little bit gentle with it. Yeah, so that's how I'm going to be potting up my seedlings. So that's great. They fit. I mean, obviously they're made to fit, but you know, when you're a little bit apprehensive about something until you actually try it. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go and add a little bit more compost into this to take up some of the water to give us a little slightly less slushy mix, and we'll go again and try these again and see if it works. Here, so I might have to empty some of this into here, out of the way. So I think I might have gone too much in it, and now I've lost too much of the water. But we'll see. I'll do it. Well, it's like this. I'll give it a good mix, and before I add any more water, I'll try it and see. But I have a funny feeling I might need to add a little bit more water. Okay, so this is the consistency of this. It's still very wet. It's just not as sloppy. So let's just move this up, and we'll see with it on this consistency. There's 20 blocks in this as well, so room for 20 seeds for anybody interested. So again, hold it, because if you're holding this bit, you might be pushing on this where you're trying to fill them. So you need to actually hold this bit to stop it going down, stop it pushing the stuff out while you're trying to get into it. Get it into it even. So I always just do that, like get it down to the bottom and rub it, so I know I've gone as far down into the compost as I can, and then you can see there It's full. Right, so let's try this. This might actually be a winner. This baby blocker mightn't like the really, really sloppy. Yeah, okay, absolutely perfect. Perfect. So I will lift a row up and come and show you actually. Let me see where's the best place to go. Okay, so there you can see the individual baby soil blocks. They've got the little indent in the top to put your seed in, and even when they're moved away from each other, they're okay. Well, that's after pulling that bit out, but they're still holding their shape. They're holding their own, and that is exactly what we want. So less sloppy on the mixture for the micro one, a little bit sloppier for the big one when you're doing the indent, a little less sloppy when we're doing it to hold these ones. So again, not an exact science, something you will learn as you go, but I am off now to do all my micro blocks. I'm going to fill a couple of trays, so I have them all ready, and then I can go hell for leather on the actual seed sown. Okay, so after we got our mix right, eventually, and as I said to you, like that's the thing about soil blocking. If there's no like specific recipe with measurements, it's just you kind of have to make it up as you go along, really, and see what works best for you. But we've got there in the end, so I'm really happy with that. As I said, we've 520 individual soil blocks in there. And just to give you an idea of size comparison, if I was using these trays, there's only 24 cells in this tray, and I would literally get what 48 in that kind of space. Like even with these ones, sometimes you can get them that there's 40 individual cells. Again, you would only get 80 in this sort of a space. So if you're looking for something that's very space efficient, the soil blocking definitely is. And I find as well what I like about this is they're a lot easier to water. So I just like with these trays, you have to there's holes in the bottom, right? So you have to sit them into a tray like this and leave them sitting in water for ages till they suck it all up through the bottom. Whereas this, I find you can just pour some water in at the side with your watering can and let it go through and just pour bit by bit until you're happy that they've all soaked up enough water. So I find it's easier and more efficient for watering as well with the soil blocks, which is another reason that I like them. I also find that they're easier to kind of prick out and move around. If you have some that have germinated and some that haven't, you just take out the ones that have. You can plug in a little other soil block to keep it going if you want to do more. So I just prefer them overall to the plastic trays, to be completely honest with you. So next thing we're going to do now is we are going to sow our seeds. Okay, so I'm going to be starting off with Snapdragons, Antherinum. This variety is called Ruby. I've done these before. They're really nice. They're like a reddy pink, but like not a magenta, if you know what I mean. They're a real, I don't know, just deep, delicious kind of a reddy pink. So, first things first, what did I tell you? Label and then write it down. So, today, what date did I say today was? 29th? I can change it anyway. So, I have it written down here. I have my snaps, I have Ruby, and I have 29th of the 8th, 23, polytunnel, and I'm going to write soil block. So I know if I'm looking back next year and I want to see how I started them off and how well they did, that's what I do. So that's that done there in my notebook. And then next I am going to write up my label. So I'm just going to write snaps and Ruby. Now I have to kind of decide what way I'm going to go with these because each lot, as I said, was 20. And I don't think if I go this way, like 140 or something, I don't want 140 specifically of that variety. So I'm going to have to figure out the best way to put the labels on these. I don't know if it's just like across each little individual section. I might have to get in and kind of move them a little bit to show the differentiation between them. I possibly should have left a bit more room between them when I was putting them down, but sure, I'll know for the next tray. Not to worry. But anyway, I'm going to show you how I go about sowing these. They're very tiny seeds. So I find the easiest way is using a dibber. Now, you can use a pencil either. It doesn't matter. I've done videos on this before. You don't need fancy tools. the tip of a pencil is just as good of a dibber. The main thing that you want to do is you want to dampen the top of the dibber. So I've just got some water here in the tray here below. So I'll just drop it. So keep the top of your dibber or your pencil, whatever you're using, wet, and that will help the seed stick to it. Don't know if you can see that, but I've got one seed at the top there, and I'm putting one seed onto the top of each. That one didn't come off. Of the soil blocks. So one seed per block. Now, if you're worried about germination or you have old seeds, you can do two. That is not a problem. But it's one seed per block generally. Now, my only problem with this is I can't really see if they're coming off the top because the soil is sticking to them. So I might actually go back to the pencil because it's easier. So again, wet the tip, one seed, and then drop her in. Yeah, this is better. I can see better with this if it's the seed has come off. So I might just redo them ones that I've done. And that's all you have to do. So once you put your seeds in, you just need to, I just finished these last ones. You just need to get your label, put your label in, and then what we'll do is I will move them over to where I'm going to leave them while they are germinating. Put the excess ones from my hand back into the packets because seeds are expensive and we can't be affording to waste them. Okay, so there you have it. That's how you sow your seeds. Not much to it at all. What I wanted to do before I finish the video is go through what I'm sowing now and explain why I'm sowing them. Because I put up on Instagram that I was doing my seed starting for the flower farm for next year, and a lot of people were like, "Why are you sowing seeds now? It's not very early. You should not start them next year." So basically, what you want to do is there's some variety of flowers that will happily grow slowly and steadily over the winter, and that will start you off for early flowers next year. So for example, like snapdragons that I just did there, you can sow them now and they will grow really, really slowly all winter. Get them into the ground about March and you should have flowers from them by May, the start of May. But you can also do snapdragons, like sow them in March, and then those plants will go out a few months later, which means that, and they'll flower later than the ones that you do this time of the year, which means that you'll get your snapdragons from May all the way through to kind of Octoberish. So some plants do better than that. Then there's other ones I'm going to sow, like larkspur, for example. So larkspur need the cold stratification, which is they need the cold and then they need the warm to get them going with the germination. So they need that fluctuation in temperature. You won't really achieve that in the spring, but also that they would need a period of cold for their flowers to form. So you start them now, this time of the year, they'll get their temperature fluctuations, they'll get their cold over the winter, and then when you put them out in March, they'll happily grow away. And again, you should have beautiful flowers from them around May, June-ish. So that's the reason. Now, there's other things that it won't work with, like that are a warm weather flower. So some things germinate in colder temperatures, some things germinate in warmer temperatures. So for example, you've got the likes of your zinnias, you've got your cosmos, you've got your amaranthus, things like that that you really won't be starting maybe till like April. April could be even nearly Mayish. Same reason you wouldn't even dream about putting a dahlia tuber this time of the year because they are not cold plants. So they'll start to be dug up out of the ground this year. And you won't start them off till maybe March, April next year. Again, they won't benefit from being grown over the winter. The cold will just kill them. So it depends on the flower. So what I'm doing here today won't suit every flower. So make sure when you're doing it, you have the right variety. So to give you an idea, I am doing cornflowers. I love cornflowers and they're so easy to grow and they're so pretty. The flowers are edible. You can do quite a lot with them. You can dry them out. So they're a really good one to start with if you've never grown flowers before, and you can get them in quite a lot of different colours. Also, the stem lengths will be, if you're doing for like cut flowers for making bouquets, for doing arrangements in vases, cornflowers have longer stems. I find when you start them at the winter, same with the snapdragons, same with sweet pea as well. They will get a longer stem if they're started this time of the year and they get the long season of the winter to grow through. So I would be doing my cornflowers. As I said, I would be doing my anthuriums, my snapdragons. I'm going to definitely do two zones of them, so I'll do them in the spring again, so I get them all season long. I have a couple of different varieties of snapdragon to bring in, like the double flowers, the single flowers, all the different colours. I am doing larkspur now. Larkspur, got larkspur great the first year I grew them. They were absolutely stunning. Haven't been able to get the same thing since, and I think it's because I was starting them too late. Because from people I follow in that, they probably don't start their larkspur till the end of September, start of October. I find my larkspur, if I leave them that long, they're very prone to rotting the seeds. So like seeds need certain things. They need temperatures, they need light levels, they need soil, they need moisture. Too much or too little can make issues for them. So with larkspur, they need the cold stratification, as I said, they need the temperature fluctuations, but they are very prone to, if they're left sitting in wet soil, that the seeds will rot. So what I find with larkspur, if I leave them too late and it gets too cold and gets too damp, they sit in wet seed blocks and that rots the seeds, so I don't get any germination, or they might start germination and then I get dampening off, which is basically your seeds will all start and it just kills them off. It's horrible. So I've decided, well, I have the light, well, I have, because there is a good bit of temperature fluctuation. Like, let me see. Went down to the coldest was in here was 12. The hottest is in here for 35. So you're getting a good fluctuation in temperature. Plus, I've put my larkspur in the freezer for the last few weeks. So I took them out of the freezer today. And again, that will mimic temperature fluctuations. So I'm starting them off a bit earlier in the hope that they don't rot and they start off well. So I'm doing my larkspur. What else am I doing? Larkspur actually is an annual delphinium as well. So I'm also starting some delphiniums, not so much for the flower farm, more for out the front in the front garden, to see how they go. I know some people will say that you're better off going to a nursery and buying your perennials for your garden because they're from stronger stock and they're not growing them from seed. They're better because they're dividing plants and things like that. But like they're really expensive, and I have a whole lot of garden to fill, so I will be doing it from seed. I will see if they work. So I have a couple of different delphiniums. Cerinth, I'm going to start, but I won't start them today because they need to be soaked overnight. Plus, they're a much bigger seed. They're like a pea, like a small pea, kind of the same idea, same size as a sweet pea seed. So they will be going into the bigger soil blocks, and I'll soak them overnight to try to get through some of the shell. What else am I doing? Campanula. I've never had any luck with campanula, but I've never really seriously tried to grow it. And I think anytime I've tried to grow it, I've tried to grow it in the spring. So I'm going to see if I get any better now, starting it off in the autumn. I also have some Brita, is that what it's called? You know, the purpley ones that like they trail down, like they flow like a waterfall, because David wants some of them for a wall out the front. I'm starting them. Um, Ergonum, which is a sea holly, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and Echinopes, which is a globe thistle. They're like, you know, the kind of bluey and purple thistly looking things you see in flower arrangements. They're really, really pretty, but they're again big perennials. So I'm hoping to have a bed of them with the thing like eucalyptus and things like that. So I'm starting some of them off. Solidago, you would probably, I don't see many people growing it, and I don't know why, but I see it in quite a lot of flower arrangements, and I think it's probably just looked down upon as a very cheap filler. I actually think it's quite nice, so I'm going to grow that. Of course, I am doing foxglove as well. I absolutely love foxglove. I love foxglove so much. They're so beautiful. So I'm doing a few different colours with them. And they are again a biennial. So I think if you were to sow them in the spring, you wouldn't get flowers that year. You would have to wait till the following year. But by doing it this way in the autumn, and you give them the period of the winter and the cold and all that, you'll get flowers off them next spring. And they're so beautiful. Um, Brisa maxima, hare's tail grass, bunny tail grass, Panicum virgatum. They're again all like fillers, like they're really nice grasses. The bunny tails and the hair tails are like, they look like what they say. They're so cute, and you see them a lot in little buttonholes or in dried flowers. So I'm going to do them. Lupins, I am starting off, and Aquilasia, Aquilia, depending on what some people call it. The lupins and the Aquilasia are again perennials that I'm doing for the front garden. Also doing catmint for the same reason. I'm doing some nigellas. Have never had much luck with nigella, but again, I think they're prone to rot, and I think I've always started them off too late, so I'm starting them off now. I mean, like, what did I say? We're the 29th, is it? 29th of August. So again, we're practically in September. So, and again, I'm a bit more northerly, so a lot of people I would follow that do flowers are way more down south and down the south of England. So I think I need to be a couple of weeks ahead of where they are, really. And then I'm also doing Orlea grandiflora and Sweet Rocket, which are both kind of a long stemmed green with a nice delicate white flower on the top. Again, foliage fillers for your bouquets are really nice. There's another filler you can do this time of the year called Amimages. I'm just not doing it because I don't like it. I've grown it a few years. I don't like how the head droops. I don't like how it sits in an arrangement. I don't particularly like it. I'd rather have Orlea or I'd rather have Sweet Rocket. So that's what I'm doing with them. I'm not doing sweet peas this year. I just haven't. I'll probably do them in the future, but this year they're just not. And then I never know really what to put sweet peas in with. Like I don't know. Do people actually just buy bunches of sweet peas? I don't know. Maybe in the future, but not this year. And I'm hoping as well to get some corms for some ranunculus and some anemones. Because I want to do a bit of experimenting and use some of the space in here to grow them inside the polytunnel. Everything else that I'm talking about here will be grown in the polytunnel over the winter. It'll be hardened off in the late winter, early spring, and then it will be planted outside. But I want to see if I can like make this polytunnel space work kind of early spring before all the tomatoes and stuff go in as well. So I'm going to test it for growing some flowers. So I will be doing a test bed of ranunculus and anemones in here as well. But so far that's all the plans. Then obviously in the springtime I'll be doing more, like I'll be adding some dahlias, I'll be putting gladioli. Gladioli is actually another thing that I think I'm going to trial in here in the polytunnel. I have some going over in the corner there just in a pot and they've done really well. I find they get really bashed with the rain. So that's why I'm thinking about doing them in here in the polytunnel. But yeah, so it's really going to be a really like experimental year. We're going to have a lot going on. It's really exciting. But the main thing is to get the seeds down and sowed, get them happily grown away over the winter, and then we can tip away at doing the beds for them outside over the winter ourselves. So that's it. So that's everything. It's all go. It's very exciting. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you got something out of this video. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you can follow along and you don't miss any videos. Okay, thanks very much. Bye. Okay, so excuse the state, excuse the fact that it's dark and this footage probably isn't great, but it's the 5th of September and I'm just down in the polytunnel on a little bit of a rescue mission. So of course, after the weather we've had all summer, we're after getting a bit of a heat wave, bit of an Indian summer, and the temperatures are going up like ridiculous. It's been like 25 degrees here during the day. I'm actually going to see what the max is on the thermometer, and I have all 4 doors open all the time, and the max in here for today was 39.5. So I'm just worried that it's too hot for the flower seeds. They are cool weather seeds. So I'm taking them up to the house. The heat wave is due to end at the weekend, and I'm just going to take them up to the house and I'm going to leave them in one of the kind of cooler bedrooms, because the soil blocks are drying out quite fast, and if they just keep drying out and the seeds start to germinate and then they dry out, they just shrivel. So for the sake of a few days, they're just safer up in the house, and then I can move them back down when the temperatures return to a little bit normal. But I just wanted to, I'm actually in the middle of editing this video when I'm taking this video, so I just said I would add this in as a little update at the end to let you know where I'm at.